So this is the first of this PC Buildathon series I was going to do. I've actually checked the dates of when these old Dell systems were bought, and apparently I picked them up in January 2018. So that's where, that just goes to show that's over 4 years ago. 4 years ago I was trying to sort all this crap out and it's still no better off. So I obviously picked them up from wherever I bought them from then, and then it wasn't until October 2019 when I started the footage that you're going to see now, which is where I started to take these things apart and go through a cleaning and tear down process. You'll see that I'm basically blasting them out with a compressor just to get rid of any of the main dust that's in them as a starting point. I'll put a little date stamp somewhere on the screen just to give a rough idea of when things were happening. So the other day I was looking through that box of cables and all these screens and whatnot, and this morning I decided to try and carry on and really just try and get stuff sorted out. I've got a lot of things that have been neglected and left and not been dealt with, including the garden. I even managed to spend a good hour or so out there this morning, although I don't like working in the sun, so when the sun came out I came back in and I sorted out all the cables at the back there, which I've probably just looked at. And as it's a good sunny day, it's a good day to get stuff like this sorted out, because I can clean these down, and like the front panels I'm going to take them all off and wash them. All the plastics I'm going to wash, but even the cases, if they need a bit of a wipe down, I can do that, and then I haven't got to worry about the rust because I know they'll dry. I've already given these a good blast out with the compressor, but that really was just to get rid of most of the dust and fluff, so it made them sort of bearable to work on. So what I'm going to do now is completely strip them down as much as I can, and then clean everything up and whatnot. So I'll probably go and strip one of them down on the bench just so you can see what's in them and how much it comes apart, and I'll do the rest of them off camera because there's no point in doing 5 of these. I've also got that other case, the E-machine one, you can see here. That'll need taking apart and cleaning as well. There's not really much to that because there's no real components in it. But I'll probably give the power supply a blast with a compressor. In fact, all these power supplies I shall probably open them up and blast them out when they're open, because it's easier to get any remaining dust out, and I can check the fans and make sure all the caps look okay and whatnot. Because I'll probably use these Dell power supplies are not particularly powerful, but they're very reliable. I think they're 200, 250 watts at most, but for most of these setups that's pretty much all I shall need. So here we are again on the bench. I've just got one of these Dell PCs up here. They're all going to be about the same. There might be some minor differences inside with what's been left in them, but as far as I know these are all the same model of tower system anyway. So let's make a bit of a start. There's a little quick release latch on the back of these here, and you just sort of pull it that way and that releases a locking mechanism, and then you can push the panel towards the back and it will lift out. They're quite well made, these, and they're nice and sturdy. That's one of the reasons I bought these, is they're really solid. I think these are Pentium 4s. I have actually got another crazy project that I've come up with recently, and it may be that some of this stuff is going to be of use to me now, which might sound a bit odd when you look at what's in here. It's only got 3 PCI slots, we haven't even got AGP. The motherboard's probably not going to be any use, but the memory might be, and the heat sinks. Things like the fans I'll keep anyway, because these are pretty good fans. These you release by pressing in a little lever there, you squeeze that and then this will slide down and then you can release it. And these are the nice, quiet and reliable fans, so they're worth keeping regardless. And these will go back in the case anyway. These will just be like a system exhaust fan that goes on the back here. And again, it can be easier to clean these up when they're out. I think these are dampened. They're mounted on like these rubberized little things here, and it just sort of takes the vibrations out. You get a lot of fans mounted like this now on modern cases, and this is a really old system, so they were obviously doing that quite a while ago. So just gonna pretty much undo and release everything I can. I'm not sure if this has got a proprietary kind of front panel header. That could be a pain, because obviously I want to use these cases with standard boards, so I don't know if these will be wired to any particular standard, if there even is a standard on the front panel header pinout. Actually, that's something I'm not sure of. But if there's not, these are pretty standard type of connector, and these wires could be popped out and then put into other doubles of these. You get them in like pairs, so I could just sort of get rid of this header and work around it that way. DVD or CD-ROM drive. They all seem to have different drives. Some are CD, some are DVD, ROM, some of a DVD writer. I think, well, I'm assuming they're CD because some of them aren't marked. This one doesn't have any markings on it, so I'm not sure. Normally if it's a DVD it will say. These you've got one screw you undo there, and then the other, it's not a proper screw. It acts as a kind of a slide rail thing. I think you have to get this front panel off first. And there's just a couple of clips, and then that's kind of hinged. It sort of hinges down and comes away, and you see there's these like clips here that latch in on the other side. Probably can't see that very well, but and then you sort of latch it in and then hinge it, and it clips shut on these 2 clips there. That I'll just pull apart and give a good clean. I think all of this comes undone. Yeah, there's like clips here you can undo if you really want to go to town. And the top as well. So that whole front section comes off. You've got the sort of light pipes and things here. You've got to be careful with these, they're a bit delicate, so I should probably not necessarily go to that extent with all of them, but it just shows what you can do. And that's basically a primary air intake there. I think there's, there are these gaps at the bottom as well, and then the front of the casing's got this mesh here, which you could put a fan behind. So now this drive should slide out, and you can see it's got one of these funny screws with like a spacer bit on it. It just acts as a rail, and the same the other side. So you've only really got one actual screw holding it in. It's a CD-ROM only drive. It's IDE. I think all of it. Yeah, this whole thing's IDE. Doesn't look like there's any SATA on here at all. So, yeah, no floppy drive installed, and we've got like a floppy drive blanking plate in that, which is fine. And we've got all these stickers as well, and probably the Windows sticker and the Dell stickers there. I'm going to take all them off, and the usual Windows Intel. I'll take all of them off. I'm not too fussed how these look. I think it's worth making a little bit of an effort just to make them a bit smarter, and it gets rid of any sticky residue and mess from any glue that's leaked out. I hate things that are all stickied up. I don't like it when the computers are all stickied up and gungy, and same with cables. That's why I don't like it when people use electrical tape on wiring. The other thing with these Dells, because you have to take the front panel off anyway, they put these little extra screws for the other drives on the front, and they're just fixed into the case, and you see the spares there. I think some of them even have spare places for like drive rails on some of the models. There should also be like a bracket here that sort of clips in and screws in on the front here, and the hard drive's mounted sort of in that way. And then the cables, I think now they come out the bottom or the top. But I'm not sure where it is on this one. I may have, I think I might have took them all out when I blasted this lot out with the compressor. And we've got some more cables on the board down here. This looks like it's going to be a standard USB header that goes to a front panel, which has got 2 USB ports. And then we've got some kind of audio header here, which has got quite a lot of wires on it really. Not quite sure why, because there's only one socket. Maybe that's a standard thing, and perhaps some of these front panels have more than just a headphone socket like that. There may be a space behind here for another. Not on the metalwork, there isn't. I'll leave that alone. That does actually come off. I have been considering taking that off anyway, because with that off, this hole here will be open, and it's just a bit more of an air inlet then for cooling, because I've got no interest in using the headphone socket, and certainly not the USB ports. Very unlikely anyway. So I may just take them off anyway while I'm at it. There's just a screw on the right hand side, and the other side's just sort of latched on. I've got a cable tie. So yeah, it's just a bit more of an air inlet then. It doesn't look the best, I suppose you could say, but I don't know. I'll make a decision on that at some point. Again, with these front panel buttons, just a little bit you can squeeze, and then it just sort of latches and locks in. Quite well designed. IDE cables. I'll look at getting this motherboard out next. And these nice red screws that they use. They've got blue ones as well. I think the blue ones might be the finer threaded sort of machine screw thread, whereas these are the, well, I don't know, I never call these machine thread. I don't know what they actually are. They probably are, but they're just a coarser thread. I'm sure somebody knows the correct terms for them and names. Oh yes, of course, because this is a P4. And I quite like this, and in some ways it's a shame they don't do this on the newer systems, but they've taken a different approach. The actual socket is bolted down to the back chassis, so you bolt this on and that bolts to the back chassis, so all the weight of the processor is actually supported by the case, and it's not really hanging off the board in any way at all, which I think is a really good design. There's probably a reason they went away from that. Now these, you've got like these little green clips here. Sometimes they're metal. Again, it's just something you can squeeze to release it one end, and then just hook it out. There's one either side. I can't find the other one, but a bit tight. There we go. And then the heatsink, there's another retainer clip here you can sort of pull forward, get that over, and hopefully the processor doesn't come off with the heatsink. And then down here now you should be able to see I've got these four bolts. So if I now get a screwdriver on them, it may or may not come to light, so I'm not even going to talk about it at this stage. So that should, in theory, be free now. So yeah, nothing particularly exciting. How much RAM they've got? 256. So we've got half a gig on there. Obviously it's not a great deal at all, but it's an old system. I shall leave the processors on these, and I'll probably clean all the thermal paste off, and the same on the heat sinks for now. That the processor's probably safer on here, and probably even the RAM, to be fair, because I've only got to store them elsewhere otherwise. Whether I'll actually get to clean these up today by the time I've stripped them all down and whatnot, I don't know, but let's see. Power supply. Yes, it's a 250 watt, but this is a heavy beast of a power supply. It's certainly well made. It's just got the 80mm fan on the back rather than the nice big fan on the bottom. I do prefer them with a bigger fan on now because they do run a lot quieter. That's probably, again, scrap because I'm not going to be using them boards. Like a lot of cases, sort of pre-built or cheap ones, this side panel doesn't come off. In fact, the side panel is in fact part of the top, and the lip for the other side, the top lip for the other side of the case. So yeah, do with a good clean up that. And a lot of these cases I've noticed the feet have come off as well, so I'm going to have to try and get myself a load of feet for these, because these are going to scratch everything up otherwise with these rivets that are on the bottom. You make a right mess with those. But that's about it. You can't really do much more than that. I could take these out, but there's not really much point, to be honest. So I'll give this a bit of a wipe down. Some of these, I think there's definitely one that's looks like someone's decided to throw a cup of coffee inside it, so that will definitely need a good wipe down. But these are probably going to be alright, just basically a bit of a dust down and get the labels off and wipe down the panels. It's only going to be the plastics that I'll give a good scrub up. So one trick with these heat sinks and the processors to stop the processor getting pulled out with the heat sink, I've found generally works, is if you just give the heat sink a bit of a waggle side to side, sort of twist it, and that'll break the seal from the bottom of the heat sink to the top of the processor. Then when you go to pull it out, if I release that clip this side, lift it up, you don't get the processor with it. You ever wish you hadn't started something? Yeah, this is looking like one that's had coffee or something spilt on it. It's drawn blood as well, bloody thing. Yeah, definitely coffee spilt. And as I was saying, sometimes the processor comes out when you don't want it to. So these power supplies are pretty good inside. There's no obvious signs of any problems. Quite good how everything's all tied up neatly out of the way here with cable ties and bits where they're needed. Not too dusty, but I'm gonna, as soon as I'm opening them up anyway, it makes sense to just blast them out while they're open. I've got this little one here from the what was it called, E-Machine, that's the one. I've opened that up. This is heavy as well. I quite like how all this is like sandwiched. It's quite surprising how densely packed that this thing is. I took this bit off thinking I'd perhaps be able to get the fan out, but I can't. But again, this doesn't look too bad either, so I shall just give these a bit of a blast down and I think we'll be alright with those. The power supplies have all been checked out now. I'm sure this was supposed to be creating space, not taking up more.